Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's video I'm here to talk about the 5th episode of F4 Thailand, and I have a couple of things that I want to really air out about this episode, and I'm really curious about what you guys have to say as well. So we've been having conversations in the comment section of my past videos and really enjoying them, even if some of us have contrasting opinions, some of you agree, but I'm particularly curious about this episode or what you think of it, because I personally have very strong opinions about certain things that happened here that I would really want to share. And I think for me, this episode is one of really the, like, I wouldn't dissect it part by part, but what I would do is talk about certain themes or observations that I've been having for the past couple of episodes, since it's the 5th episode already, and kind of like summarize all these feelings and thoughts in this particular video. With that said, let's just get to it. My biggest gripes, I think, so far out of the past episodes up until this point is the fact that F4 Thailand seems to explain every single thing. It shows and it tells at the same time. Not really the biggest fan of that kind of storytelling, and I was letting it pass for like the past couple of episodes because I was still trying to gauge, how Thai dramas work, or I'm just trying to detach myself from certain biases that I have in terms of watching like the other adaptations or anything like that. So I want to know how the storytelling for this one is going to go, especially when it comes to the more emotional moments of the drama. Episode 5 is definitely less comical and more serious, and that's when I realized what I really don't like about this drama so far is, again, it tries to explain every single thing, even the characters trying to explain and justify their actions or who they are, to the point that it sounds like therapy sometimes, them trying to psychoanalyze each other. And I'm not particularly a fan of that, because the beauty of watching a drama or a film or just storytelling in general is sometimes you see a conflict between the actions and the words of a character. They're saying that they're happy, but you can see in their face that they're not. So those kinds of moments really build up something like an emotion, and it gives the audience enough time to connect to the emotion that's happening on screen and immerses them into, what, this character is being portrayed as one thing, but I think that they're doing this because of that. And I don't know, like, that builds the connection when it comes to the viewer and what they're trying to see. But if a character is trying to explain every single thing that they're doing and feeling, and it's juxtaposed in a manner that, like, for example, that scene in episode 4 with the magic pork, like, Thyme was kind of like saying, you know what, I'm happy. I don't have any worries when it comes to at home and everything like that, and it juxtaposed that into a scene where he's like, the dinner setup at home was kind of sad. Like, that one is how that scene should, like, emotional scenes should be like, because the character is saying one thing but the reality is different and it's being shown to the audience. But then most of the time for these particular episodes, the characters are trying to explain what's happening to them, how they're feeling. Gorya is trying to explain or psychoanalyze Thyme most of the time, like, you're doing this because you're lonely, you're doing this because you're that. In this particular episode, there was this scene where Thyme was saying, I have impulse control issues and that's why I buy all of these other things, blah, blah, blah. And it could have been done a different way, where it's just shown that, he likes all these other things. It's done in Hana no Chihare, where Haruto was so obsessed with, like, Lucky Charms and all these other things because he was so fixated in trying to be perfect that he's trying to buy all these things that would help him be that. But it wasn't explained on screen. It was something that the audience was able to perceive. And they should have done the same thing with Thyme in that particular scene as well. Like, they could have shown that he has all these things, but he kind of like neglects them after because it was really out of impulse. And it could have been translated through acting, but without them necessarily having the character psychoanalyze himself or another character say it out loud that, oh, so that's what you are and what you're like or anything. Another thing is in terms of the scooter with Kaning, like I didn't really feel any connection about that scene at all, because we never really, like, we know that they have this certain certain level of friendship, and that Kaning's dad was kind of like, you know, Gorya, if you need anything, you can always, like, you know, like, go to us or anything like that. But when it came to the scooter, there was nothing there. It could have just been anything that could have, I don't know, like, they could have played out a certain scene prior to that, showing that, you know, Gorya and Kaning has this, I don't know, charm bracelet or anything like that they value so much, and something. So it means something to Gorya, other than, you know, it's just, okay, so the scooter is Kaning's, and that's why Gorya is so concerned about it. So when there's a need for exposition or a scene to establish something, I feel like the drama sometimes lacks that. And then later on, when it doesn't need to explain something, it explains something in your face. And, you know, it kind of like messes up how you connect to the material, which I feel like the first couple of episodes, like episodes 1 and 2, was doing quite beautifully, in a way that it was trying to imply certain things about the characters. They're not trying to explain every single thing yet. And although there are some parts that are preachy, it still creates something that's a little bit more symbolic, like with the shoes and everything, and how Thyme destroyed it. So that's why there's a certain level of importance when Gorya used that to kick him. So they don't necessarily have to explain that, but it still worked. And I wish that that could have been consistent when it came to like the other, like these following episodes. Another thing that I didn't like is in terms of the delivery of the lines. If it was a bit more comical, I wouldn't have noticed it as much. But because these scenes are so emotional and the impact is a lot more like serious when it comes to like the tone that we're having for the particular episode, it felt like it's a stage play, if you get what I mean. Like there's this one particular moment with Kavin and MJ where they were trying to figure out who Hana was, and the back and forth was just kind of like off, in a way that, you know, oh, I need you to show me something. Okay, here you go. And then everything is spoken out loud, and it feels very unnatural. Like, and then there's this aha moment. Oh, I remember from the yearbook. And then he grabs the yearbook. And then, you know, remember this one? They could have done it in a way that, you know, the aha moment wasn't spoken. It was kind of like just occurred to both of them. They look at each other. They kind of like hurry, and it builds up something for the audience. Like, what are they on about? Like, if I know the story already from the past adaptations, but if it's new, you kind of feel that build up and stress from the characters, and then you get that moment where it's revealed without them actually saying anything. You know, they could have done it like that, so that the elevation of the emotion and the impact of what's happening has this level of climax to it, you know? Another thing that I didn't like about this episode, but if I were to just say it up front, I highly commend the acting of the actress who played Hana. I feel like she did it so well. Like, she did the emotional part, her emotional moment so well. And I really like how, you know, you can feel this like twistedness in her, how everything was. I just wish that the dialogue was a lot better, because again, it felt like they were trying to explain every single thing. For those who have seen Hana, Yori, Dango, the Japanese version, Sakurako had the same thing as well. So she had like plastic surgery because she wanted to be beautiful, to sort of like act as a revenge for the Myoji for calling her ugly back when they were younger. And then she comes back and she kind of like demands this sort of like, tell me I'm beautiful. Tell me, like, I need you to apologize. Like, there's this command to her, and she's not saying that I suffered because of what you said, anything. No, you kind of see from that particular scene the pain that she went through without her necessarily saying it herself. It was like she was trying to show that, you know, I'm happy with how I look now, everything, something like that. But then you can see the anguish in the way that she was delivering her lines and how she was acting, that she's not happy at all. Like, she She did everything to do this so that she can achieve something, and yet why isn't she achieving it? And you can see all of that without the character explaining it herself. But here, Hana was explaining everything, and she was like saying, this is how I felt, this is blah, this is this, which, and then Thyme had this like therapy moment where he was kind of like saying that, I know how it feels. You just don't know, but I know how it feels, and blah, blah. And that came out of, like, we never really saw him develop through those kinds of emotions. So for him to say that, I don't know, man, like, that just feels kind of like off to me. Speaking of that, I didn't like how they showed her face, her before face, because it kind of perpetuates the stereotype that pimples equals ugly, which again I feel like is so passé in 2022. And at the same time, like, the beauty of the other before and after stories with a similar narrative, like for example for Korea there's My ID is Gangnam Beauty. For even the Japanese version, Hana, Yori, Dango, they never really showed the face of the kid, and why the character like Domyoji called her ugly. That's just how it is, because it reflects more on the character of the male lead rather than the girl herself. Because putting a face to it, it kind of just shows that there's this look which kind of justifies, you know, why he called her like that or anything like that, which I feel like having zits is normal. So for her, like, so for that to be the face of what ugliness is, like, I don't get the point of that. It kind of sends off a wrong message, especially, I don't know if there are younger viewers who see that and they see that, you know, that's how ugly is being portrayed, and that's why she did all these things, is because she has that, so she has to change, when in fact that's normal. I know it kind of sounds idealistic, but I would rather that they didn't put a face to what is quote-unquote ugly, because it just shows that even if you have a clear face, even if you have clear skin, Thyme was awful back then. You know, he was like that. He was judging people just based off of, just because it's just him being him. It's not because of her face, it's not because of how she dresses, it's not because of how she looks. He was just like that, and that's where we see his growth from then to now, and in a way that they just don't show her face, because again, it shows that back then Thyme was just that, like, she could have looked like anything, but his words affected how she perceived herself. And that's why it's so important to be careful with what you say, because even if there's nothing about that person to feel bad for, their perception of self changes because of someone else, and that's the impact of that, and that's the growth that should have been shown in that particular episode. There's just so many things. I like the latter part of it, where, you know, Gorya and Thyme, they're having a moment. That was pretty nice. In terms of how they were like messing around in the cafeteria, I think that was really, really nice as well. And then in the middle of it, Ren comes back and, you know, sets up everything for episode 6. That part I'm okay with. It's just for the treatment of like the other parts of the episode. I feel like it's good in a way that it delivered the emotions well. If just by itself, it is a good and a strong episode. It's just that there's just so many things about the technicalities of it that I didn't exactly enjoy. Another thing that I didn't like about this episode as well is, you know, Hana was saying that she's sorry, and then that she's not sorry, and then when Gorya opens her locker, so she sees that she was actually apologetic. But it was product placement, and I understand because they shared the scene prior to, you know, them drinking the soy thing, and that was like their bonding moment, and I understand the connection from there to that. But because it's product placement, it wasn't as heartfelt to me as it is, like, for example, in Japanese version, where the moment they shared that, you know, like, Makino didn't forgive Sakurako for what she's done, but she said that, you know, it's fine because you said one time that my mom's furikake covered onigiri was delicious, and I feel like that was the only moment that you were honest with me, but because of that I forgive you. So something like that, I felt like that had more emotional impact than this one, because again, I understand that she didn't want to apologize, but she still apologized. But because it's product placement, the emotional impact had a little bit of disconnect. So yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, so tell me down in the comments below, as usual, what are your thoughts? Any other things that you would want to like point out? I would absolutely love to have another discussion in the comment section. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll be seeing you again soon in a new one. Bye!